Hello, wildlifers. Hope you're all doing fine. We, the members of Rotary Fellowship of Wildlifers for Conservation, share a common interest, that is wildlife and its conservation, willing to work with the 118-year-old organization, Rotary, towards building a future in which people and nature thrive. To share a few notes about our fellowship group, we are a group of around 500 plus interested individuals now who have globally united around a common interest with the primary purpose to network and further friendship. Although our fellowship activities are conducted independently of Rotary International, they are in harmony with Rotary policies. Our purpose is to create awareness about importance of wildlife, to promote lasting friendships outside one's own club, district, and country, and to promote locally, regionally, and globally that conservation of living resources are important to humans and future generations to enjoy our natural world and the incredible species that live within it. A Rotary Club is a member of Rotary International, and a Rotary Fellowship is a group of like-minded individuals driven by Rotarians beyond their clubs. Today, we have invited members of Rotary clubs and friends of Rotary from different parts of the world for this meeting, as you can see. A hearty and a warm welcome to each one of you. On behalf of Wildlifers, as global chair of this particular fellowship group, I extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Nahar Mohammed, who has around 17 years of experience in tourism, planning, and sustainable tourism development, principally in areas like ecotourism, heritage tourism, protected area tourism, and PPP tourism projects. His interest towards sustainable tourism got kick-started at the Indian Institute of Forest Management, Bhopal, where he majored in the area of natural resources management. His key skills are in the areas of sustainable tourism policy formulation, planning and development of niche tourism projects and initiatives. Nahar has a significant experience with India's tourism policy and planning environment. His work on tourism planning projects across 15 of India's state governments, developing policies, strategies, and action plans for developing tourism demonstrates this. His work has frequently included environmentally sensitive regions, protected areas, and surrounding communities for a wide range of habitats and scales. His work in Eastern Africa includes a pre-feasibility destination development plan for the Lake Victoria region, Uganda. Nahar has direct tourism operations experience, including management of 2 of the eco lodges in southern India. Of course, it was one of these eco lodges while he was managing, I met him, and he was my mentor in the initial days when I was looking at wildlife. He has also developed a business model for an ecotourism based chain of resorts for the AT group and public-private partnership models for tourism across 50 destinations in Gujarat. Currently, he is finishing his PhD from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, in the area of protected area tourism and working with corporates, governments, and private sector groups for the planning and development of tourism projects. So I have been following Nahar. He was in Gujarat. I followed him to Gujarat. He was in Sikkim. I followed him to Sikkim. Now he is in Orissa. I will soon be following him to Orissa as well. Over to you, Nahar. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mohammed Nahar. Yeah, go ahead, Nahar.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. I hope I am audible.
Yes, yes.
Wonderful. It's indeed a real pleasure and a privilege for me to be part of this August gathering. I used to attend some of the previous sessions of this platform, and I got really excited to know that there are so many wonderful people across the globe being connected uh, virtually now, but some of you are definitely connected even otherwise, for the sole purpose of generating more strength towards the conservation initiatives across the globe. So it's indeed a pleasure and an honor for me to be with you today and to share some of my understandings and experiences working in this domain of tourism, and specifically on tourism that happens in the protected area context. Uh, Having said that, before I get into the PowerPoint presentation, I thought I'll just quickly tell you why I got really interested in this area. As Sanjay has mentioned during the introductory remarks, I studied from the Indian Institute of Forest Management, and it is a highly specialized educational institution located in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, of central India, where education pertaining to wildlife management, on environmental issues, natural resources management, etc., is being provided through various educational programs. It was there in the year 2004. I remember when I was attending this session on wildlife related management. My professor had mentioned that we have national parks all across India as well as in other countries who act as the islands of conservation. So I was quite interested to know why this word park has been attached to conservation movement, because normally we relate parks to recreation, we relate it to some open space where people can spend some outdoors and good time together. So I had this debate with my professor then, asking him why, because if it is a park, it should be open for people to visit. But then during those days, it was not really being opened up the way it is opened up in the present time. So that has actually prompted me to do a little bit more on to understand what is the things that are happening in the Indian context as well as in other countries. And that's where I understood that there's a lot of misunderstanding and there is a lot of confusion with respect to whether tourism should be allowed in a protected area or not, even if it is allowed, in what form and what shape it should happen, etc., etc. And this doubt and confusion was prevalent amongst all the stakeholders, starting from the managers. In the Indian context, we have the Indian Forest Service officials who administer these parks. So amongst them, I had seen a lot of apathy towards this. Many of them were of the opinion that this is not something which we should be doing as conservationists or protectors. Our role is limited to conservation and protection, nothing beyond that. So we used to have a lot of debates, and that is when I completed my course and I joined the newly constituted Madhya Pradesh Ecotourism Development Board, apparently one of its kind in the whole country. And that gave me opportunities to visit various protected areas, including some of the leading, tiger reserves of Madhya Pradesh, where I had direct interactions with the protected area managers, local community members, tourism industry stakeholders, etc., etc. So this gap of understanding is something which I believe is still prevalent, despite we made a lot of progress in visitation to tiger reserves and national parks over the years. And that is exactly why when I and Sanjay had a brief discussion, which was basically to plan his upcoming trip to one of the protected areas in the northeastern side of India, where I mentioned to him this dichotomy, and that's when he asked me, why don't you share your understanding and what you feel is the right path to take this visitation forward, and that's how we decided to have this session. Now I am also, as Sanjay had mentioned, is pursuing my PhD, and my PhD is again on a similar topic where I'm trying to understand the impact of protected area tourism in the well-being of host communities of a tiger reserve located in Odisha, which is on the eastern side of India. This tiger reserve is called the Similipal Tiger Reserve, where my data collection, my interactions with the survey communities are still going on. With that as the background, in today's presentation, what I'm trying to do is to give you all a very generic and a very simple introduction about protected areas and the kind of tourism that happens there. I believe it is important for you to understand, this general aspects of tourism, why tourism should or should not happen in a protected area, and what are the background to it, what are the policy or strategic requirements which forces various proponents, be it the governments or somebody else, to propagate tourism in various protected areas of the world. So this is what I thought I will just quickly show you through my slides. And towards the end of it, I would like to share one of the case studies, which I believe is a positive case study, because you have both good tourism and bad tourism happening, and therefore you have both examples available in front of you. But I would like to end with a good example where how protected area tourism has contributed or have supported the conservation, the larger conservation requirements of a protected area, is what I am trying to showcase today. Now, I would like to share the screen. Is the screen visible? Can anyone confirm, please?
Not yet. Nahat.
Naha, there's a share screen green button.
It says advanced sharing options. Who can share? Post only, all participants. There is some window showing in my screen right now. Should I select all participants?
Yes.
Right. I've selected that. And here I am seeing like basic, advanced, and files. Which one should I select?
Files. Or
Files, is it?
what are the options? Sorry.
I could see three options: basic, advanced, and files.
Advanced, I suppose.
Slide says virtual
Oh.
background.
No. You see basic.
Mhm.
You click on basic.
Yeah, I can
Did you
see
get-
desktop,
Okay.
one, whiteboard, whatever.
Yeah, I think you click on desktop. No.
Yeah, you can click on your file. I think you're at the settings. You just have to click on the green button and then
Yeah.
choose your window that is open, your presentation.
Allow Zoom to share your screen. Okay,
Yes.
open.
You can just click on share once you have your window open.
Okay, I need to select this. Zoom, you will not be able to see the recording.
Or you can just share the presentation on WhatsApp with us. One of us will share.
Acha.
WhatsApp or email.
Okay. I think there is some issue here. I'm not able to.
You can quickly share it on WhatsApp or email.
WhatsApp, no? Okay.
Yeah, WhatsApp or email. Oh, yeah, WhatsApp.
Yeah, I have sent it to you, Sanjay. Can you?
On WhatsApp?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not yet. Yeah, now I got it. Rashmi, I'll forward it to you.
Sure.
Please give us a couple of minutes. We'll do it. Just 1 or 2 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. Shall we proceed?
Yes, yes, please. Yes, please.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And sorry for that technical issue. Uh, so can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So today, as I mentioned just before, I'll try to cover 3 things. The first thing is about tourism in general. What is so important, globally speaking, tourism as an industry, tourism as a sector. And then we'll come specifically to the tourism that happens within protected areas context. And finally, I'll end up with a case study. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, as we all understand, tourism, travel and tourism is one of world's largest and fastest growing industries. Keeping aside this last 2.5 years of pandemic related travel restrictions, uh, tourism as an industry have been growing all the years. And post pandemic also we are seeing a surge in tourist visitations across the globe, across all different types of destinations. And now what we see is there are more than 1 billion tourists who visit from one country to the other. They are crossing borders internationally, and it provides almost one in every 11 jobs globally, and around 10 to 12% of the world GDP comes from tourism. And that is how tourism, how tourism is significant globally. Next slide, please. Yeah, from a developing or from a poor country's perspective, tourism is considered to be a very important and a powerful tool for achieving some of their goals, like be it development, environmental conservation, or poverty alleviation. Next slide, please. Now coming to the next segment about tourism and protected areas. Here, what I'm trying to do is to give a generic introduction about protected areas. And then I will move on to, the visitation that happens or the tourism related aspect. Next slide, please. So as you can see from this map here, uh, there are two types of protected areas available. From nature protected areas point of view, you also have culture-based protected areas. For example, the heritage sites, UNESCO World Heritage Sites, are of cultural in nature. But for today's discussion, we will be restricting ourselves to nature-based protected areas. And within that, there are two types of protected areas. One is the terrestrial ones, which are land-based protected areas, and then you have the marine-based protected areas. And if you just look at the definition, as per IUCN, International Union of Conservation of Nature, defines protected areas as clearly defined geographical space, recognized, dedicated, and managed through a set of legal or other effective means to achieve the long-term conservation of nature and its associated ecosystem services and cultural values. As on today, this is the latest figures that are available in the World Database of Protected Areas. It states that around 15.95, almost 16% of the Earth's surface is protected under the terrestrial or inland waters, whereas 8.16% of the Earth is protected under the marine protected area coverage. Next slide, please. Now, as we understand, there is a growth or there is an expansion of protected areas across the globe. In every country, the respective governments tries to expand their protected areas. And if you look at the global protected area footprint, it was in the year 2010 as part of the Convention of Biological Diversity. Around 193 signatories representing various nations have come together, and they have adopted a new strategic plan which was based on targets. Until then, there was no such targets being defined. Now, as per this, which is otherwise called as the HE Target 11, the effort was to have at least 17% of the Earth under terrestrial protected areas. However, this target was not able to achieve due to a variety of reasons. If you just go back to the previous slide, please. Yeah, here this 15.95, this is the figure of 2023. So we are still lagging behind from the actual 2020 target, but we are still progressing. The world is progressing towards it. Move to the next slide, please. So then, since we lost that target of 17%, now there are efforts being put to redefine this target, and with a higher or a more ambitious targets are being discussed, like 30 to 50% of the geographical space. 30 represents a particular geographical space, whereas 50 is specifically for those areas which are exposed to various climate change related threats. But discussions are still going on. We are yet to, as a global community, we are yet to set this target. Next slide, please. Coming to protected area tourism. Protected area tourism is nothing but visitation to protected areas, be it terrestrial or marine protected areas, with the objective to observe wildlife, vegetation, or landscapes. There are very popular protected area tourism countries like Costa Rica, various countries in Africa. We have some friends from Kenya, South Africa, Tanzania, etc., which are well known globally for their protected area tourism. Australia as well as India are also prominent among the protected area tourism destinations of the world. Now, protected area tourism, there is a tendency to put everything termed as ecotourism as a generic term, but I have a different opinion there. Ecotourism is a larger terminology. Even activities that happens outside a protected area can also be called as ecotourism. But here we will restrict ourselves only to the type of tourism that happens in a protected area context. There are studies or research carried out by various organizations which proves that how significant is ecotourism for a particular country. WWF have researched and found that almost 20% of the revenue from tourism in developing countries are coming straight away from ecotourism, because most of these developing countries, despite various challenges that they have, are still able to manage their natural areas to a larger extent. Within this, we see a trend that shows that protected area based visitation is on the rise globally as well as in the Indian context. There are countries like Kenya and Costa Rica where out of every 10 visitors, studies says that almost 8 of them are coming primarily for the wildlife viewing or protected area visitation. Next slide, please. Now, if you look protected area tourism from a structural point of view, all those countries or nations who were signatories to this IUCN convention, they have adopted this protected area based conservation system, wherein they have created or declared conservation areas as protected areas and given them various tags, be it national parks or wildlife sanctuaries. In some areas, it is called as conservation reserves. So there are various terminologies being given to them, but they are essentially protected areas. And if you look at the type of protected areas, there are actually 6 broader categories, and there is one subcategory. And within these 6 broader categories, you will see, except for one, which is the first category, that is strict nature reserve. For rest, all of them, visitation or tourism is an activity which has to be propagated by the protected area management. And it says that tourism is a management objective alongside their conservation and protection related activities and interventions. The protected area management is expected to promote tourism. They should promote more and more people coming and visiting their protected areas and understand the kind of dynamics that goes in. And then when they returns, they go as an ambassador of conservation to their respective areas, and that's how the conservation goals can be achieved. And now, it is also been told that when it comes to evaluating a protected area and its effectiveness, its management effectiveness, one of the indicators is how best they are managing their tourism. Even in the Indian context, of late, we are seeing that protected area management effectiveness evaluation takes care of the tourism aspect very seriously. Now, there is a larger agreement that by promoting tourism, it will eventually contribute to the conservation goals directly or indirectly. Directly means when you buy the entry ticket or some services which are available in that protected area, you are paying money there, and that money will be eventually utilized for the conservation related requirements. And social and economic benefits here means the local community members who are living in that area will find alternative employment through tourism. Otherwise, their dependency on the forest resources are going to be on the higher side. So in order to bring that dependency towards the lower side, tourism is actively being promoted across the globe as an alternate livelihood option. Next slide, please. Now, these are some of the broader facts and figures. Globally speaking, this is a very, very big segment of tourism. There are 8 billion visits, and these visits are primarily in the Europe as well as in the North America region, where you don't have many, typical wildlife areas. They are wilderness areas, but presence of wildlife would be relatively lower. I just wanted to show you this magnitude of money being spent under this protected area too. That's why I thought I'll bring these figures in front of you. So if you just look at the visitor expenditure, how much of money the visitors are spending to visit these protected areas globally, we are talking about around 600 billion US dollars. And the revenue here means, there are various ways in which the protected area management can collect money from the visitor. It's coming around 500 billion US dollars. Whereas the management expenditure for the conservation and protection of these areas is estimated to be around 6.5 billion. So you can imagine the kind of economic benefits protected area tourism can bring. Next slide, please. So these are some of the leading top 10 visited protected areas of the world. Most of them are, as I said, are located either in the North American region or in the European region. Just to give this, idea about how many numbers of people are visiting these. Next slide, please. Now coming to the Indian context, we have, as I said earlier, different terminologies for protected areas. So here we have wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, conservation reserves, and community reserves. As on date, in India, there are around 1,000 protected areas, and the numbers are increasing every passing year, out of which 106 are national parks, 567 are wildlife sanctuaries, and all these protected areas within the country occupies around 5.28% of geographical area. Now, if you relate this with the global targets, which is now we are talking about 30% of the global area. So you can imagine the amount of work everyone, including the governments as well as people like us who are connected for the conservation cause, have to realize over the years. So we are just 5.28% vis-a-vis the target of say 17% or be it 30%. Now these wildlife, these protected areas are being governed by a set of legislation, not just one. There are a variety of legislation that includes Wildlife Protection Act. So every country has nation-specific legislative framework, which actually supports the formation as well as the maintenance of these protected areas over the years. Next slide, please. Just to give you an example of the benefit of protected areas in the country, there was a study being carried out by my alma mater, the Indian Institute of Forest Management, which was commissioned by the national government, Government of India. The study concludes that if you look at just the economic valuation of 10 of the 50, now that 50 has gone up, tiger reserves across the country, every single rupee being spent is actually giving in turn benefits of approximately 2,500. Now these 2,500 is benefits which can be spread under different categories, be it the gene pool protection, water conservation, local employment, recreation services, etc., etc. So every single rupee is giving back benefits worth 2,500. That's the kind of benefits which we can have if we maintain these protected areas reasonably well. Next slide, please. Now, these are some of the figures which they had arrived at, the tangible benefits for each of the parks. So for example, the Bandipur Tiger Reserve in Karnataka generates benefits to the tune of 48.49, around 50 CR worth benefits are being generated on an annual basis. Whereas the Similipal Tiger Reserve in Odisha is generating around 70 CR worth tangible benefits because of maintaining these tiger reserves. Next slide, please. Now coming to protected areas and its tourism aspect. As I mentioned, in India, we have both terrestrial as well as marine protected areas, and these protected areas are acting as the tourism hubs. Some of them have been into receiving visitation for almost 2 to 3 decades, but there are new protected areas being exposed to tourism visitation. So this number is growing. They are spread all across the country. You be it in the northeastern part of India or on the southern tip of India. You go anywhere in the country, you have protected areas of different kinds. Generally, people visit these protected areas with diverse interests. It could be spotting mammals, it could be spotting birds, or in the case of marine protected areas, marine species. And a combination of culture and recreation also drives people to these areas. Now, when it comes to promoting protected area tourism in these protected areas, every state has its own set of policies, institutions, and strategies. For example, in the case of Karnataka has a wilderness tourism policy. Through that policy, they have laid out a set of rules, regulations, guidelines, etc. for anybody who is involved in protected area tourism to follow. From the forest department side or from the respective tourism department side, they try to evolve strategies to attract the right kind of visitors, to attract the right kind of investments. We also see a lot of involvement of private sector, a lot of investments, be it in the form of eco lodges outside the protected areas or organizing eco tour programs. So a lot of private sector involvement, as well as private sector as well as community involvement is also on the rise. So in India, the general trend that we are seeing is there is a huge demand of protected area visitation, and a lot of investments are going into making newer infrastructure, etc. However, in this whole process, there are a set of conflicts or problems are also arising, because what we see here is a stakeholder interest. You know, for a private investor, his primary interest is not exactly to contribute to the conservation, but he's been driven predominantly by making more and more profit. Whereas protected area manager, a forest officer's interest is to conserve his area, not making any extra revenue. And many occasions, this interest between profit and non-profit also ends up in some kind of a conflicting scenario. There are various examples we can see across the country. Next slide, please. Now, just to give you an example of the magnitude of protected area tourism, a study carried out by a group called Toft Tigers in the year 2010 have concluded that one tiger in the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve in Rajasthan, over a period of 10 years, generates benefit to the tune of 600 CR. And this 600 CR is from a variety of revenue source. It could be the entry fees, the camera fees, the guide charges, the safari fees, and also your stay in a property, in an accommodation unit next to the park, or the taxes. All these things put together. So if a single tiger can generate up to 60 CR a year. So we can imagine the kind of revenue generation potential of tiger tourism. And it also provides direct employment to approximately 3,000 people. Now, if you look at the revenue generation again, there is a variation we can see from one protected area to the other. For example, in the case of Badra Tiger Reserve, this is from 2010 data. The entry fees was around 4.5 lakhs, whereas the gate entry fees for Ranthambore was to the tune of around 21 CR. So that's the kind of potential each protected area can hold. Next slide, please. This is again another interesting study carried out by the Wildlife Institute of India by one of the leading wildlife scientists. What they found was, in Rajasthan, through wildlife, in Ranthambore Tiger Reserve of Rajasthan, the total revenue generated per year out of wildlife tourism is around 217 CR. Out of which 19.57 CR was only from park entry. Now, if you see the spending by government, by the state government and the national government put together for the park is lesser than this. I don't know if you can read that or not. It is around 11.5 CR is what the state government spends for the maintenance of this park, whereas the revenue which the park generates from tourism is above that. It is around 20 CR. So that's the kind of potential tourism has. Next slide, please. Now, these are some of the advantages, very generic ones. If you promote protected area tourism, you can raise revenue for your local communities, new businesses, small, medium businesses can be promoted for the local communities. It will generate new jobs for the community members. It will definitely going to enhance the education and awareness of general citizens about the need for conservation. Even if a person does not experience the wilderness in its natural form, his understanding about the need for conservation may not be adequate. So a visitation would definitely enhance that. And of course, this economic benefits or incentives that you generate would eventually help in protecting your habitat much better, because at the end of the day, everything boils down to availability of financial resources. So tourism can be a non-consumptive. Yeah, that's another important point, that unlike any other livelihood options that are available for people who are living in and around the protected areas, tourism is one option where the direct consumption of forest resources are not happening. You are consuming it indirectly. You are on a safari or on a trail, but you're not taking out any resource from these areas as such, and therefore it has a better contribution to the conservation vis-a-vis other forms of economic options available. Next slide, please. Now, in this process, we also see a lot of challenges or issues. Some of them I have listed down here. One is, the soil erosion, because when the safari jeeps move on a regular basis, the soil gets, eroded. Wildlife disturbance, like as you can see, this is an image taken from one of the parks in India. When a tiger is being spotted, there is a tendency to crowd the animal and a lot of stress happens. And in the process, some of these individual tigers or other animals get accustomed to such situations. That's a different. So their original behavior is slowly getting changed. So these are some of the issues which would evolve out of promoting tourism in these areas. Next slide, please. Now I'll come to this very interesting case study. Here I would like to showcase how promoting protected area tourism has contributed or enhanced the conservation scheme of the particular protected area. Next slide, please. So this is a protected area located in the southern tip of India. ये called Parambiculam Tiger Reserve. It is part of the Western Ghats and located in the Palakkad district of Kerala in South India. And the park has a large landscape with different types of forest vegetation, be it evergreen, deciduous, and moist deciduous, and some bit of plantation, especially tea plantation is also there. In fact, the scientific forestry, the British, when they started this propagation of commercial timber production in India has happened, it had actually started from Parambiculam. So the Indian Forest Service officers, as part of their training program, will be taken to this Parambiculam sanctuary to study this whole process of scientific forestry and its beginning. So it's a very interesting tiger reserve for any visitor, because when you visit there, you'll get to see some of these old plantations, some huge tea trees. So it is also known for tigers, and tigers happens to be the flagship species here. And there are indigenous community like Kadars, Malasar, Muduvas, and Malasar inhabiting this area, this tiger reserve for ages. And the tiger reserve was declared, this area used to be a wildlife sanctuary until 2010. And in the year 2010, the national government had announced Parambiculam as a tiger reserve. When it got declared as a tiger reserve, the park management, when they did an assessment of the challenges for conserving the tigers, what they found as the major challenge, there were a set of other challenges also, but the most critical challenge that they found was the presence of domestic cattle, which were maintained by the local community. Because this being a landlocked area, the livelihood avenues for the local community were quite limited, and they were predominantly dependent on the cattle which they were raising. And because these cattle are living inside the park, they have this tendency to go inside the protected area in search of food, and in the process they used to meet some wild animals, especially the gaurs, the bisons. And there were challenges like this particular disease called the rinder pest. It had actually affected the wild population, and this rinder pest has come through this wild this domesticated cattle. So what these forest officers did was they had a series of discussions with the community, asking them, what are the ways in which we can get rid of this cattle. So what they told them is, if you can give us an alternative employment option, then we might consider that. And that is how they looked tourism as a tool, as an option. And they thereafter have incorporated tourism as part of their tiger conservation plan, which was subsequently been approved by the National Tiger Conservation Authority, which is the agency which approves all the tiger conservation plans, and under which they have divided the park into 3 zones: core zone, buffer zone, and tourism zone. A tourism zone was relatively a very small area. Less than 1% of the total reserve was considered for tourism zone. But what they did was they came out with a lot of interesting activities and built capacity amongst the community members, as well as develop various infrastructure which are required for promotion of tourism. And they also have carried out various marketing and promotional efforts. And ultimately what happened was, can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah, so they came out with a program for promoting ecotourism or protected area tourism in the park, which included a set of eco-tour programs like trekking, jungle camping, bamboo rafting, wildlife safaris, etc. And the capacities of the local communities were enhanced for guiding and interpretation. They acted as guides for their safari trips or for their bird watching trips, etc. And they also formed small groups for waste management. All these waste being generated out of tourism, a set of people were assigned the task of collecting, segregating, and making products out of this waste management. And they also set up, accommodation units like this image that you can see here, tented niche, where visitors can go and stay and also experience the place. Simultaneously, they have formed various enterprises, small businesses like honey processing. There's another community group which was made to prepare paper bags, handicrafts, organic farming was happening, balm production. And then from Dhara project is where they have started this small water, distilled water project, sales outlet, etc. Next slide, please. These are some of the images of this ecotourism development which they had carried out. Some tree cottages, trekking, bamboo rafting. Next slide, please. And these are some of the small businesses, the honey making unit, the bamboo raft. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this was the outcome. What happened was in the year 2005, when they have started, the annual revenue was around 68,000 Indian rupees, which have grown to around 3 crores by 2015. And by 2019, the figure has grown to almost 30 crore. So that's the kind of economic benefits, revenue generation, which the ecotourism project has done for Parambikulam. And of course, it goes without saying, a lot of employments, both direct as well as indirect, was generated. By utilizing the financial benefits, what they did was they started, supporting educational incentives. They have also started an insurance coverage, health programs, various trainings, etc. have been carried out. And the end result was in the year 2014, the Tiger Reserve has been declared as 100% cattle free. This was the grand achievement which Parambikulam has made by way of promoting very planned and systematic tourism project. Next slide. So as concluding remarks, what I would like to share is that protected area tourism is a powerful tool. However, it is important for everybody, from the protected area manager to all the stakeholders who are involved, to understand its power, really well, and then develop a plan. And many a times in the Indian context, the protected area tourism takes place without any planning exercise. It happens just like that. And most often what we see is there is a market pressure. There are a lot of people from the urban areas, they go and invest on a land parcel next to this protected area. And then over the years, they'll start constructing something, maybe a small resort or something like that. And then they'll start exerting pressure on the park management to, to widen the safari area or to do some new practices, etc. Why? And then all of a sudden, a lot of visitation will start taking place. And the park management is completely, underprepared or ill-prepared to address so many people. So the market pressure is building across the country because of the better economic position of the middle class Indians. They are opting out to travel to these protected areas in large numbers. So this is a major issue which many of the protected areas are facing. Incidentally, I am working with some of the protected areas in the country, helping the PA management to devise a tourism management plan And while you prepare the management plan, you should actually do it in a consultative process instead of drafting something within yourself and then asking everybody to follow it. You should adopt a more of a consultative or a participatory method where every opinion should be gathered and then have a workable, feasible plan which can be operated. So that is a kind of an initiative which should happen. And unfortunately, in the country, except for a few protected areas, largely they are not either willing to do it or not in a position to take up such thing. Community involvement is very important because they are the critical stakeholder. So you need to involve them. Visitor management, because you have different types of visitors, so you need not keep all the visitors into the same basket. We need to understand the visitor and their interests. For example, there are visitors who are hardcore bird watchers, and for them, the visitation to a protected area is different from a general tourist who is not knowing much about the birding or the other aspects. So you need to distinguish them and then package your products accordingly. So these are some of the concluding remarks I would like to propose. With that, I think I will end my presentation. I think we can now open up for discussion. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nahar. Indeed, it was a great presentation. We have Bharat in line to ask the question.
Yeah.
Then after Bharat, Dr. Deepankar Adya will ask the question. Request Bharat, please restrict to only one question so that everybody gets a chance. If there is a chance, then we'll come back again for the second question.
Yeah.
Over to you, Bharat.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Nahar, for a great talk. I think it's very informative. One thing I did not realize is how much revenue these things can generate. So anyway, my question is, I have heard that, or even seen in some places, maybe India or abroad, where just outside the wildlife sanctuaries or protected areas, they have a safari system where you are guaranteed that you will see the animals in some kind of semi-natural habitat. Say you may have a herbivore safari where all the major herbivores are seen, and a carnivore safari where some of the carnivores are seen. So what is your opinion on this, on whether it is a good thing so that the tourists can be classified into serious and casual tourists, and the casual tourists can see all the guaranteed see the animal in all the safaris, and the serious ones can actually go into the real forest. So what is your opinion on this? And also as a kind of a revenue generating stream, because you mentioned that in Bhadra the revenue is only a couple of lakhs, whereas in Ranthambore it is crores. I suspect it is because it's easier to see a tiger in Ranthambore.
Right. Thank you, Bharat. So to answer your first question, if you would remember, while I was making the presentation, I had mentioned about the market forces. Now, many parks, I'll take the example of Corbett Tiger Reserve in Uttarakhand, where what is happening is there is a lot of pressure on the forest officers, because every park, as per the carrying capacity norms, have a defined number of vehicles who are allowed to go inside on a particular time. But then you have people who have invested money, be it from the local area or from faraway places. They keep putting pressure on them through political interventions or otherwise. And after some amount of defense, eventually the forest officers will get succumbed, and that's when they go and search for alternate options. Because for a tiger reserve to operate or to open up new areas for wildlife safari or anything of that sort, they will have to take the permission from National Tiger Conservation Authority. And it is a long drawn process. Normally, their tourism plan will be drafted as part of their management plan, and this will get approved by the NTCA. And the time horizon for a tiger conservation plan is normally 10 years. So within that 10-year, whatever you have got approved, you are expected to follow that. You are not able to, add more, because Corbett, you would have read in the recent times, there were some suspension, some issues are also happening there. Even Supreme Court has ruled against some of the actions by the officers. So as an alternate option, some park authorities will opt for opening up areas adjoining the park, which are essentially outside this tiger reserve boundary, where they need not go for the NTCA. But again, sporting animals in these outside areas are possible or not. It depends on the area, because in the case of Corbett, what I learned is that the sightings were fairly good, despite it is outside the park area. Alongside, if you look at Madhya Pradesh, it is considered to be the tiger state of India. A lot of wildlife related activities takes place in Madhya Pradesh. There, the state government or the authorities have started even night safaris. We would remember saying that, during my time in jungle lodges in Karnataka, we were categorically told that night safaris are not at all permitted, but they are doing that. Then they have also may suffer. So these are why this is happening is because of not having a proper planning well in advance. And the second major issue which the forest officers face is that, when it comes to their administrative powers, these administrative powers are confined to only the area within the tiger reserve or the protected area. Anything which happens outside, they don't have an administrative power. Either the revenue department or the district administration can come and do something here. So, if somebody wants to set up a resort outside the protected area, he just need to take an NOC from the local DFO. Beyond that, he has no control. He cannot say that, this should be the way you should develop. Eco-friendly materials needs to be used. You cannot have rain dance, you cannot have high music, etc., etc. For this to happen, there are ways and means to work on it. But many times, the officers, the forest department officers will not venture into such things. They'll just restrict themselves to their area and their kind of activities. So to cut the long story short, so these are, in my opinion, things happening because of the pressure being built by the market forces on these administrators to have something additional. But whether it is the right approach or not, I would definitely say that this is not the right way to to manage the situation. There are better ways to manage it. And second question with respect to the entry fees, as you can understand, the figure that I had shown in my slide was a bit older. It is taken from 2010, and I'm sure over the years Bhadra would have also made a more than crores of revenue from gate entry fees. But in general, depending upon the possibilities of sporting tigers, the number of visitors to that particular area increases. Yeah.
Thank you, Nahar. Over to you, Dr. Deepankar. Please go ahead.
I think you need to unmute, please.
Sir, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, good evening, and Rotary and Sanjay and the organizer, especially to Mr. Nahar for the beautiful presentation. We are also facing the similar problem. I'll tell you, I'm in Calcutta. In West Bengal, North Bengal, Jayanti, there is another reserve area where outside the reserve area, the residential complexes are coming. with the connivance of the local, maybe the political people, to show that the residents in the lap of environment like that. And as you were telling, the forest officials also, they are more or less helpless. So we have a group called Shobuj Mancho, that is a platform of roughly 93 environment NGO who are working in the field of environment. So we are a group visiting, rather our representative have gone to that place with the local community. They are creating pressure, which is the local resistance group, and we find it is somewhat working. Rather, right now, their project is somewhat has stopped for the time being. I do not know whether they will find out some other way to go ahead. But for such type of thing, local resistance is the only way to overcome. Another part of it, because of this development of residential areas within the forest area, the fragmentation of the forest area is happening, which is creating more problem. When, say, you must be knowing, recently 2 boys were killed by the elephant while going for their exam. Because it's a fragmented forest area, the people are passing through, and the wild animals also using the same path. So those sort of problems are coming whenever, so man and wild conflicts are developing because of this.
Right. No, so just to quickly answer your issue, so there is a legal option available. That legal option is something called as the eco-sensitive zone.
Yes.
So there is an eco-sensitive zone notification by the central government available, which prescribes that the area outside the protected area can be notified as eco-sensitive zone. And within eco-sensitive zone, there are 3 types of activities possible. One is they call it as the prohibited activities. Second is regulated. Third is activities which are permitted. Okay, so this residential project which you are mentioning is, first of all, we need to see whether it is falling under the eco-sensitive zone or not. If it is falling under that, then there is this categories being listed. Residential projects are, I think, regulated projects. But for that regulated project to take off, permissions are to be taken from the concerned authority. So my request would be, if you can just, if it is a protected, I don't know if you're talking about a protected area or a non-protected. If it is
It is just outside the protected area.
Yeah, the first thing you should do is to find out the notification for that protected area, eco-sensitive zone notification. It must be available in the West Bengal Forest Department website. Yeah, then you see whether this area is falling under that or not. Accordingly, you can proceed. You can inform the forest officers and they can take action.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Deepankar. Thanks, Nahar. Over to you, Ashwin Gurusekhar.
Very good evening, Sanjay, and very good evening, Mr. Nahar. Thank you so much. Wonderful. I also believe that tourism is a very strong tool. Most of us entered as tourists. However, I do have a question. With your vast experience of studying tourism in protected areas, what we have seen and observed very closely is that there are certain protected areas which are overburdened with tourism, while other protected areas, albeit being tiger reserves, do not have the inflow of tourists at all. So that is point one. The second thing is, despite extraordinary revenues to some of the famous reserves, at least here in Karnataka, we have actually not seen the flow back of these profits or conservation success initiatives back to the local communities. So my question to you is, are you able to put advice on a policy level to the government on these 2 things? One is to have a pragmatic vision of distributing the load on protected areas equally across all the reserves. And the second point is, if there can be a process which is transparent enough for local conservationists or concerned public to have a look into, to understand what are the revenues and how much of it has actually flown back to the community? This is my questions.
All right, thank you. So my immediate reaction to this is there is a provision available, and that provision is nothing but the management plan. So every tiger reserve or every protected area must have a management plan being prepared. And if you look at any of the management plans, you will find a dedicated chapter on ecotourism, or somewhere it is called as the protected area tourism. Like, you have a separate chapter on habitat conservation, you have a chapter on grassland management, likewise you will have a dedicated chapter. But unfortunately, almost all except for one or two management plans that I came across so far have treated ecotourism as the least important thing. They have just copied paste things from here and there, talking about nothing. So but having said that, now I am presently working in Kanger Valley National Park in Chhattisgarh with the park management, where of course it is not a very well-known national park or a tourist destination at the moment, but the park management there wants to come out with a plan, and that plan they wanted it to be prepared through a consultative process, where everything from the revenue sharing to the community involvement, to the involvement of private investors, etc., needs to be defined with a timeline, and then so that in many cases have not happened, because the challenge here is, as a trained Indian Forest Service officer, if you look at IFS officers, the curriculum, ecotourism is in the recent times they have started taking them to places and teaching them ecotourism, which was not the case earlier. I had like when I used to work in Madhya Pradesh during 2005, 2007, I met many forest officers, and whenever I used to tell them that, sir, I'm here from the ecotourism board to help you to prepare an ecotourism plan, they used to say, look, we are not interested. Our job is just two things. One is protection, second is conservation. Beyond that, we have no roles. But that trend has changed now. A lot of people have realized that they cannot sit idle, they cannot ignore this fact anymore, because they are getting pressures from all the sides. So now there is a proactiveness I'm seeing slowly and steadily. Some states have progressed reasonably well. States like Kerala, Karnataka, to Madhya Pradesh, to an extent Rajasthan. These are the states who had gone, in terms of protected area tourism, farther ahead. But there are still areas of intervention, areas of attention required. I do agree to that. Hope I had a answer to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin. Ayman, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, Mr. Nahar, thank you so much for the talk. It's very informative for me, considering I'm in 10th grade now and my summer project involves national parks and wildlife reserves. So this will be very helpful for me. Coming to the question, so during research for my project, I had stumbled upon a criticism for national parks, or let's say wildlife conservation areas, that they propagate the idea that when you have to conserve wildlife, you have to remove all people from that area. So tribal people, indigenous people who've been there in that area for a long period of time and know how to inhabit the area harmoniously are now being displaced in the name of conservation. But on the other hand, we have goals of creating almost 30 to 50%, as the statistic that you said, to create that much coverage of land to be wildlife protection. How do we go about doing that, especially also considering that the population is growing at such a huge rate? So there's so many factors involved. What are your opinion on that?
Well, nice to see you. I mean, I hope you remember when you were a kid, we used to spend time together, you and your
Yes.
dad. Yeah.
I was
All
about
right.
to say that what you are seeing is the same baby Ayman what you had seen.
I know. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. So, great question. So, I mean, I will not be able to give you any straightforward answer to this question, and it's like a question which keeps evolving. But again, taking this example, this case study example, which I had showcased today in the presentation, that is one case where I'd seen how the community needs and the conservation requirements were sort of addressed using ecotourism as a tool. Now, in that example, also you will find inadequacies and limitations, etc. Because what is it happening is, when I used to work in, say, for example, BRT, Biligiri Rangana Swami Tiger Reserve in Karnataka, and I used to closely interact with the tribal communities there, especially the Sholiga community members. And what I observed is that when it comes to the community dynamics, the elderly members of the Sholiga group have a particular view of looking at the forest and its forest resources in comparison to the younger generation. So there is a generational shift which is taking place when it comes to the aspirations of these people, the young generation with respect to their life. This Similipal Tiger Reserve, for example, where I'm doing my research. When I used to ask the elderly people about their life, their younger days, they used to say we used to walk 20 kilometers to reach the town and do our work and then come back by walking. Whereas the youngsters are not doing that. They are more dependent on motorbike or bus service, etc. So there is a shift that is taking place. And this dynamics is something which the protected area manager will have to keep an eye on. So a dynamic planning, it's instead of a static planning, you should have a dynamic planning which should be in place. That is how you can address the problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nahar. I think we are done with all the questions. I just wanted to ask you one question when you were talking about this change in behavior of tiger because of the tourism. Slowly it is getting adopted or adapted to seeing many vehicles. Is it good or is it bad? Straight question. Your view.
I would definitely say it is not good.
It is not good.
Yeah.
And why do you say that?
See,
No,
because
but the reason why I am asking you is, if a tiger is getting used to the movement of human beings, isn't it good?
no, I'll tell you why. Because see, as we understand, cats, big cats, be it tigers or leopards, are generally territorial in nature. They mark their territory and they try to maintain that territory. Okay. Now, within that territory, there is some dynamics. There are tigers who live adjoining to a tribal hamlet, and over the years, they will get themselves sort of adapted to the situation, the human beings around. Vis-a-vis a tiger who is which is deep inside the forest, which does not have any human interaction. And in the process, what happens is, their behavior, their natural behavior gets changed. So I think, what happens is then they will get adapted to it, and a lot of behavioral changes that happens, which I think from strict, wildlife conservation point of view, from a tourism operator's point of view, I would like to see that, the animal is also getting accustomed to the human movements, etc. But from a conservation point of view, I think that's not a good sign.
Okay. So, in a way, it's we can say that it's a matter of, perspective.
It's a matter of perspective. If you look things from an ecological perspective, then it's not a good sign. But purely from a tourism point of view, perhaps it looks good for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nahar.